council members and participants, we are now live.
Thank you and good afternoon. Before we begin the public hearing, I will make the following announcement. City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come, and I'm going to ask the clerk to please call the roll to take attendance. Members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are present when your name is called, and also please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen as you speak. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gaudier,
Present.
Councilmember Brooks, Councilmember Brooks,
Present.
okay, Councilmember Johnson, Councilmember Jones,
Yes, Madam Chair, good afternoon. I am present.
Councilmember Harity,
I am president.
Councilmember Thomas, and the chair, Councilmember Bass.
I am present. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And a quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs regarding bills numbers 221-016 and 230-324 and Resolution 230-461. I'm going to ask the clerk to please read the titles of the bills.
Bill number 221016, or ordinance naming the designating the Chew Playground basketball courts located at 1800 Washington Avenue, the Rasul Butler basketball courts, in honor of Port Breeze native Rasul Butler, who distinguished himself over a 14-year NBA career, most notably with the Miami Heat. Bill number 230324, an ordinance officially renaming and designating Brocksburg Park, located at 3101 Orthodox Street in the city of Philadelphia, as Robert A. Borski Park. And resolution number 230461, resolution approving the rebuild project statement for fiscal year 2024 pursuant to bill number 170206.
And thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat must only be used for this purpose. Before I call on the clerk to call the first panel, would any of my colleagues like to make opening comments? Okay, I don't see any requests for opening comments. And Madam Clerk, will you please call the first panel or witnesses we have to testify today on bill number 221016?
I don't really see any panel witnesses here.
So I know that we have the administration available, so I'm going to ask for them to introduce themselves. I see Aparna Palantino is here from the administration. Aparna, are you I'm taking it that you are the sole witness for this bill.
I believe I am, council member.
All right,
Yes.
well, welcome. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Aparna Palantino, Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. Good afternoon, Chairperson Bass and members of the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. My name is Aparna Palantino, and I serve as Deputy Commissioner for Capital Infrastructure and Natural Lands Management for the Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill number 221016, an ordinance naming and designating the True Playground basketball courts located 1800 Washington Avenue, the Rasul Butler basketball courts, in honor of Point Breeze native Rasul Butler, who distinguished himself over a 14-year NBA career, most notably with the Miami Heat. The naming of the basketball courts in memory of Rasul Butler will fittingly recognize a beloved member of the neighborhood of Point Breeze, who proudly represented the city of Philadelphia from his days at Roman Catholic High School to a star-studded career at LaSalle University, culminating in a long NBA affiliation with many teams, where Rasul had the opportunity to showcase his talents for 14 years and play alongside some of the game's biggest stars, yet never forgetting his hometown. Honoring Rasul with the naming of these courts in his memory will hopefully resonate with the children of our city, showing them that success can be achieved here in our city, both on and off the court. The administration supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully request that City Council approve Bill number 221016. I'm also requesting suspension of the rules so as to allow for the first reading at the next session of Council. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the committee? No? Okay, and I'll just say in Councilman Johnson's absence, I'm sure that, this is something that is going to be very meaningful for the community, particularly in Point Breeze. And we look forward to being able to do this for Mr. Butler's community and for family and for those who admire his skills on and off the court. So, Councilman Harity, did you have a comment?
No, Chairwoman.
Okay, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
I saw you came on the screen, so I didn't know if you had a comment.
Just that I went to school with Mr. Butler. I'm a Roman guy too, so very happy to see this.
Well, thank you, Councilman. Any additional comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none, can we now have the clerk call forward, call up the second bill, and let me just see, actually, I'm going to call bill number 230324, which is for the Bridesburg Park, because Aparna, I'm assuming you're testifying on that one as well. Okay.
Correct.
All right, so Aparna Valentino, do your thing. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Certainly. Aparna Palantino, Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. Good afternoon, Chairperson Bass and members of the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. My name is Aparna Palantino, and I serve as the Deputy Commissioner for Capital Infrastructure and Natural Lands for the Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill number 230324, an ordinance renaming and designating Bridesburg Park located at 3101 Orthodox Street in the city of Philadelphia as Robert A. Borski Park. The new park will be an anchor as a larger part of the ongoing River Trail project along the North Delaware. Simply stated, without Bob's tireless work and dedication to the trail and this park, these amenities would not exist. This park and the adjacent trail will provide our city's residents with access to the waterfront and also safe, fun activities and programming. Bob has remained committed to the redevelopment of the North Delaware for over 40 years. It's only fitting that this park be renamed for its greatest advocate, Bob Borski. The administration supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully request that City Council approve Bill number 230324. I'm also requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for first reading at the next session of Council. I will be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Aparna. I don't have any questions, but and again, this is not in the 8th Council District, but I will say that I'm excited about this renaming as well. I've known Bob Borski for a long time, and from my years as a young congressional staffer, working with him and his staff, and he's just always been, someone who has represented Philadelphia well, has done, amazing things for our city, brought resources home, and has really just been someone that, Philadelphians have a great amount of respect and admiration for. And so, again, it's an honor to be able to, memorialize Mr. Borski, Congressman Borski, I should say, in this way, so that, his legacy and his work continues on, and he could smell his roses while we still have him. And so I just wanted to add those words. Any comments from my colleagues regarding Bill number 230324? Okay.
Yes,
Seeing
Madam
none.
Chair.
Oh, Councilman Jones has a comment on the bill.
Yeah, I remember the congressman. And he was at the heart of it, a Philadelphian. And I'm excited about the renaming. For the record, Madam Chair of Parks and Rec, I never want a rec named after me if I leave you. But for him, it is truly, truly appropriate because he fought for that community all those years and was a champion for bringing home resources to Philadelphia. And I feel a little dated by the fact that we knew it. Well, I knew him. You were too young, but I actually did know. So thank you, Madam Chair.
He didn't go anywhere. He's still around. He's still
All right.
around.
Yeah, but
So,
is he retired?
He's retired. He's just retired. So,
Okay.
but that's why I said we want to give him his flowers while he's still around. And so we
Okay.
all look forward to being able to join him at this great occasion and offer well wishes for the congressman. So,
Well, then I look forward to the ribbon cutting
yes,
when we rename it. And I can
Yes.
shake his hand and thank him. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. And are there any more questions or comments on bill number 230324? I don't see any, but I do see that we've been joined. I want to recognize for the record that Councilman Kenyatta Johnson has joined us as a member of this committee, so he is marked present. And also Councilman Johnson is a sponsor of bill number 221016 regarding renaming Chew basketball courts, the Rasul Butler basketball courts. And I wanted to see if the councilman wanted to make some comments regarding that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. And
welcome.
it's only fitting and honoring for me to have the opportunity to rename Chew basketball courts after Rasul Butler. He's born and raised in Point Breeze, South Philadelphia. He's a graduate of LaSalle University. And also he's a former member of the Miami Heat. That's where he was first selected from, as well as he played for Los Angeles Clippers and a variety of different other teams. But his major team that he spent most of his time with and the team he's most proud of was the Miami Heat. And so it would be very fitting that we rename this basketball court after him, but also we're going to be doing a revitalization of the whole court in his honor. And so that's what we're working on in partnership with the Mural Arts program to make sure we honor the life and memory of former NBA professional basketball player Rasul Butler. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Super shout out to Aparna. See, it's always good to see the hard work that you have been doing to help move the city of Philadelphia forward around all things parks and recreation. So good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Okay, and so that being said, thank you so much, Aparna, for your excellent testimony today. We're now going to move and ask the clerk to read resolution number 230461, which is the resolution, or actually I'm reading it now, resolution approving the rebuild project statement for fiscal year 2024 pursuant to bill number 170206. And I noticed that we had Kira Strong here from the administration to testify.
Good afternoon, Chair Councilwoman Bass. How are you?
Good afternoon, Kira. How are you?
Good. Good.
Glad to see you. So we're going to have you state for your name, but you know the drill. Say your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, please.
Excellent. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Bass, again, and members of City Council. I'm Kira Strong, Executive Director for Rebuilding Community Infrastructure, otherwise known as Rebuild. I'm joined today by some members of the Rebuild team to present testimony and to respond to any questions you may have about Rebuild. I'm pleased to provide an annual update on Rebuild's progress and especially to discuss the future of Rebuild. In 2017, this governing body, along with Mayor Kenny, made history, taking bold action by creating Rebuild and telling Philadelphians all over the city that they deserve high-quality public spaces. Rebuild is truly a once-in-a-generation opportunity of investment in our city, focusing on predominantly high-need neighborhoods. And through our work, we have met countless residents who share with us that the improvements coming to their local park, rec center, or library are not just physical improvements to beautify the spaces, but are life-saving measures to ensure our children and families have clean, safe, and beautiful facilities no matter their zip code. Before I dive into the design and construction progress, I'd like to draw attention to an achievement that I'm equally as proud of, and our team is equally as proud of, our diverse business participation rate in Rebuild contracts. To date, over 60% of our committed contract dollars are going either to minority or women-owned businesses. That's over $57 million worth of work empowering historically disenfranchised groups in the construction industry. These contracts come in the form of contractors such as Gessler Construction, working on Federal Square Park, and Pride Enterprises, working at the Pascalville Library. On the design and construction front, Rebuild has completed 15 flagship projects. We define a flagship project as a full rebuild project. 16 of our projects are either in construction or currently prepping for construction, usually in the bid phase, with that number expected to rise over the next few months. Some examples include the Vare Recreation Center, the King Sessi Library and Recreation Center, Francis J. Myers Recreation Center, and Zeiler Playground, to name a few. 24 projects are currently in architectural design and public engagement, which includes an immersive community engagement process where residents actively participate in shaping the future of their site. While this activity signifies major project movement, Rebuild does not occupy in a vacuum. We understand that these sites are living and breathing entities in our communities that need attention ahead of their flagship improvement at times. Our first fix approach allows Rebuild to step in and supply critical funding, design, and construction to address urgent issues in order to ensure that these facilities can stay open. 38 of our sites have received a first fix. A first fix may mean installing a boiler to ensure that heat can work in the winter, or adding a sanitary pipe to ensure that restrooms can function for after-school programs. It's stepping in to invest in a new roof to ensure buildings are watertight and operable year-round, or even sometimes it may constitute a redoing of a unique community feature like an outdoor hockey rink. While Rebuild is a historic investment in our public spaces, the need at our sites far exceeds our budget allocation, as I know many folks here know. The Rebuild team has done a tremendous job at raising additional dollars. Since program inception, we have raised an additional nearly $41 million in support from both public and private sources. Recent awards include $400,000 for Barrett Playground from DCD Local Share Account Program, $200,000 for King Sessi Rec Center from the NFL Foundation, $750,000 for Murphy Recreation Center from Live Casino. And thank you to many of you here at this meeting today too for your support of these grants and getting them through. We really appreciate it. I am proud of our team and all the partners for the work we've been able to accomplish since the program started. We've weathered rising supply costs due to the pandemic. We've addressed dramatically higher than anticipated needs and costs at our selected sites, and we've tried to organize our team to be as efficient as possible to move these projects forward and deliver on our promise to Philadelphians. I'd like to thank you, council members, for your partnership and support of the work we've completed and have ahead of us. Your knowledge of the libraries, parks, playgrounds, and rec centers in your district, as well as your knowledge of the families, individuals, and children who use them, have been invaluable in ensuring our collective work in creating high-quality public spaces for all Philadelphians is successful. We know that the need for these spaces is evident more now than ever. This concludes my testimony. Thank you for your time. My team and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. And as you are aware.
I have a question, Madam Chair, at the appropriate time.
Absolutely. Thank you. I did not see you in the chat, so thank you for letting me know. I do want to just go over something really quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Kenyatta Johnson for a question. But I wanted to go back just over some things that we talked about, Kira, last week at a
Brett, can you
community
get Michelle
meeting
for me?
regarding rebuild. And the expectation
Please.
that was introduced to the community around what rebuild was going to be and what rebuild would do and what has actually happened. Because, as we mentioned in the campaign, a lot of what I heard during my primary contest was around rebuild. And the expectation that was laid out by Jim Kenney and the administration was that this was a 7-year, 3-phase program with a budget price tag of $500 million. Of that $500 million, $300 million was supposed to be. Oh, hold on. Councilman Johnson, I think your mic is.
You need your help.
Councilman Johnson. Can we mute? Let me see. I don't know if I have. Okay, great. He's me. Okay.
I'm sorry.
So, but it was that
was
problem.
a quick response. So
No problem.
when you get on, I thought this was going to be.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not having wrapped up just yet. But
okay.
hold on, Councilman. So again, it's 7 years, 3 phases, $500 million, $300 million in bond issuances, $100 million from the William Penn Foundation, and $100 million from a combination of state and federal funding and other fundraising efforts. And I know you did detail some of those fundraising efforts thus far. But let me ask a couple of questions. So the first is, of the $100 million that was promised or committed by the William Penn Foundation, can you tell us how much of that has actually been received thus far?
Yes, let me look at that really quickly to give you the current amount.
And if you could go through all of the funds received from the William Penn Foundation, state money, federal money, and private fundraising money.
So I think for the William Penn grant, we have current funding of 48 million. And just to bring folks up to speed, and please I apologize, my camera is on, but it looks like my team keeps telling me it goes off.
Right.
Am I back on?
Now you are. Now you
Okay.
are. See you now.
I haven't changed anything on my end, but it seems, so apologies, seems to flicker. Yes. So the William Penn grant is predicated upon a match. For every bond dollar spent, for every $1, we get $4 of William Penn dollars. For every grant dollar raised, we get $2 William Penn dollars. So as we spend other funds, they contribute more to the program. And I believe we have, I'm just looking at my notes here, about $48 million so far from the William Penn Foundation.
Okay. And from state and federal sources and private grants?
We have raised $41 million of state and private grants. We do have a few asks currently in, I think they're at about 9 million. Don't hold me to that. I can get back to you with that exact number. But we have raised a committed $41 million.
Okay. Is that in or is that committed?
It's committed and awarded, and in would be the finer answer to that would be, for example, a RACP grant. You have to show expenditures before you can draw down those dollars. So some are reimbursable grants and some are upfront. So it would be a mix.
Okay. All right. And federal dollars in?
Also within that 41 million.
So 41 is state, federal, and private.
Yes. And we do not have many federal dollars. Majority would be state.
Okay. So, but and I just asked because the total amount was supposed to be $100 million. And so we're short almost 60 million. Is that correct?
There's $48 million of that 100 that is part of the city capital commitment. So the fundraising goal initially when rebuild was predicated was $52 million. We actually, about 2 years ago, downgraded the fundraising goal to 25 million. We've since, luckily, and again, thanks to the support of many council people, we have surpassed that and we're at 40. So we actually I hope we can achieve that original $52 million goal. But the other part of that 100 is the $48 million the city committed out of
I
the
see.
capital. Yep.
Okay. So 52 million was from our capital budget, 48 million was state, federal, and private donations, contributions. So that's where that
48,
100 million,
yeah.
that's where that 100
Correct.
million came from.
48 from the city's capital and 52 was intended to be fundraised. Correct.
Okay. And so, and as you are aware, one of the things that really became of great concern, and we talked about last week, was the lack of progress that we've seen on these rebuild phases. We're still in phase 1. We're supposed to be in phase 3 at this point. We're at the end of the Kinney administration. At the end of his administration, we were supposed to be wrapping up these projects. And in many, and if not most cases, that the projects either haven't actually started, people don't see construction. When I say they haven't started, there's no shovel in the ground, because that is a signal to the community. All of the design work, all of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes, that's great. We're glad that it's happening, but the community really doesn't feel it until they see something happen. They see something on the site. And so can you talk a little bit about what are we going to see at the end of this administration, which is really just a few months away? How many projects have been done? What's going to happen to the projects that are still kind of hanging out there? Another thing that we discussed was staffing. I think you said you all were working on 79 projects or something like that. And you have a staff of about 6 people, 79 projects into 6 people. I can do the math. That's a formula that says that we're not going to be able to get nearly the number of these projects done. And so I'd like to hear your response on those things, and
Sure.
we can open it up for some
Sure.
other questions, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because I think, Councilman, you asked really good questions, and I think questions, frankly, that we fielded from, a number of folks, and certainly folks that are curious about what's the status, especially as Rebuild moves into potentially a new administration. So I'm going to try and cover some of the things you asked. I think we have 16 projects that are complete. We have a total of 16 that are under construction. So 5 that are in the bid phase and about to enter construction, and 11 that are active sites. And as I mentioned before, we have 24 in design. We frankly have no greater point in time, or a point of time currently in moving into this coming year, of greater activity of rebuild projects. For these sites that are under construction in calendar year 23, represent roughly $250 million worth of construction. So we recognize that rebuild certainly took a little time to get off the ground. I think, 2 years of beverage tax litigation, sitting at Supreme Court, a bond that wasn't issued until the end of 2018. And then, though none of us like to kind of acknowledge it happened, but frankly, a pandemic certainly made this project not start, I think, full on out the gate the way everybody may have hoped. I think another really key piece is that there's a lot of intentionality around ensuring we have engagement that is authentic. It results in projects where people feel heard and that they have that facility that they asked for. To that point, we've done over 110 different community engagement activities in this past year. We know that that's not always the speediest. That is that design. And you mentioned the frustration of people not seeing the shovels in the ground. And I think that design work where we're engaging with community members, it does take time to get that right and to get things designed to the point where we can actually take it out to bid and have someone build it. The other piece that I think is really critical is recognizing that we've been very intentional around the businesses we engage in rebuild work. We heard, I think, loud and clear from the mayor, from council members, that making sure that we lift up Black and brown businesses and the work of rebuild, that this really is a once in a generation opportunity for people to benefit from this magnitude and this scale of city work. So we, as you, I think, are aware, we have an apprentice program, we have a small business supports program, and that has really enabled us to build a pipeline to achieve some of the participation that we are achieving. 61% M&WBE participation. We're really proud of that. And I think that's really a key component of what Rebuild is. I think the other thing I'd like to say, and thank you for also your support of our team and understanding that we have 72 sites and that a team of 6 can't do that, right? And certainly can't do that with any speed. We started as very tiny. We started initially as 4 people, grew to 6, as you mentioned. And then with the support of the managing director, with Tumar Alexander and others in his office, Dave Wilson, et cetera, they've really enabled us and, I think been the wind in our sails to build our team. So we do have a much larger team now that is able to now really push projects through at the speed that we would like. So I hope I answered all the questions. I tried to hit them all, but I think we are, I will add one thing, which I think is just that in the beginning of Rebuild, I think the thought was also that we were going to do a lot of $1 to $5 million projects. And as I know, we have a new vision, for example, for a project in your district. We moved from thinking we're going to fix or tinker with a few things to how do we build the facility that people really need and deserve? And that has certainly added, I think, frankly, both time and budget to our projects. So some of that fundraising to enable the projects to grow also has added timelines onto projects. But I think the end result is really going to be one that people are happy and proud of. I will stop there. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. So just a couple of things. I'd like for you to also go over the 16 projects that were complete, because one of the things that I feel like is happening, I have a great amount of concern over, is what these projects are. It seems like anytime we put a doorknob on a building, we're saying that's a completed project. If we fix a pane in a sidewalk, that's a completed project. And so when we think of completed projects, we think of sort of like these major infrastructure and beautification projects that are needed at most of our facilities. And I'm worried about this because I know that the 8th Council District was shorted significantly in the Rebuild Fund allocation, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that happened. And although we were able to, through the help of the council president, get some assistance, we were left behind by this program. The 8th Council District was really left behind when it came to allocating resources. And then as people, let's say, protested, for example, Happy Hollow, I thought it was pretty ballsy of the administration to, send people out as if they didn't know what was going on and like, oh, how can we help? Like, where you been? Where you been? And so, if you could talk about what these 16 completed projects are and the scope of them, because I want to make sure that as we talk about them, we recognize that these are not 16 new buildings, which is what the expectation is from a lot of communities. These are sites that are, where, in my opinion, some tinkering's been done, or you fixed a plumbing problem that should have been fixed all along, that was neglected by, this administration and previous administrations, or you fixed a roof. Well, that's not what people wanted. In terms of the maintenance of a building that the city owns, they wanted an improvement to the amenities that they already have on site and were experiencing or not experiencing. So if you could talk about those 16 completed projects and what the scope of those were, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Yep.
And the one last thing I want to add in there is because, and just going back to fairness and equity, and how my district, again, was left out of these kind of conversations and decision making. I want to bring to your attention, and I know we've had serious conversation on this, as well as I had conversation with Aparna about the Portland Loo, which was supposed to be the first in the city to go into Vernon Park, where we host summer events, and how important it was that people in the neighborhood are able to enjoy their public parks. And if they, if there are events, that they have an option to use the restroom instead of like leaving the event. And so, our district was promised that we were going to be the first to be able to bring this fantastic new thing called the Portland Loo in, so that we could have those amenities, which were easy to clean, easy to maintain, right here on sort of like a prefab building, dropped in the neighborhood and hooked up to plumbing. And then just imagine my surprise when I saw that they were put in other neighborhoods in Center City and other areas first. And so I just wanted you to hear your comment in response to that.
Okay. Let me start, if it's okay, with the 16 completed
Yes,
projects.
please.
And they are complete projects. They're not, they're not doorknobs or fixes, but we do have those too, the first fixes that we call them. But the complete projects are the projects in their entirety. So 8th and Diamond Playground is one, Capitola Playground, Chew Playground.
When you
Distant-
say, I'm sorry, when you say the playground, did we rebuild the playground? Did we rebuild the building? Like, can you give us just a little bit of detail? You don't have to go into the whole thing, but just give us a little bit of detail as to what was done.
Yep. And just as a reminder to folks, we've worked with the respective council person around the scope for each of these projects, and certainly around the projects within each council person's district. And keeping in mind that the projects, many of them were never intended to be the entire scope of the site. So, and that's from the inception of rebuild. So the 8th and Diamond Playground was a exterior refresh of the building, a brand new playground, both younger age and older children, Capitola Playground, a brand new mini pitch, a complete field revamp, a new seating area, some refresh to
Point
the
of
basketball
information,
courts.
Madam Chair, point of information.
Yes, Councilman Jones.
When you cite these locations, can you say what district they're in?
Sure, no problem. 8th and Diamond is the 5th district. Capitola is the 1st district. Finishing Capitola, I think basketball, seating area, mini pitch, soccer fields, baseball fields, some fencing around a community garden there, lighting. All the projects I'll list are, at the minimum, I'd say, I'm not sure if we even have any that are $1 million. Most of these are easily 3 million or over. Chew Playground, field renovation playground, surrounding areas. Diston Rec Center was a completely new playground, adult exercise equipment. We're actually in construction on the building now. East Poplar Playground.
I'm sorry, where's that at? Diston and East Poplar? What
I'm
district?
sorry. Diston is 6. East Poplar is in 5. And I will apologize because I actually gave you the scope for 8th and Diamond. That was East Poplar scope, so apologies. The 8th and Diamond Playground, also in District 5, had a new building addition, a new spray ground, new playground, new seating area, brand new basketball courts, etc. The East Poplar Playground, also in CD5, had brand new building exterior refresh, brand new playground, small and larger children's equipment. Clavin Playground is in District 6. That was got rehab of the building, a mini pitch, spray ground, completely new playgrounds. Gifford Playground, District 10. That at the time was just the team, help me on that one, actually, just the spray ground, right? Okay, that was one of our very, very first projects. Hancock Playground, District 5, entirely new renovated playground basketball courts, seating and planting surrounding the pool. Heitzman Rec Center, District 1 in Harrogate. That was a project, complete building, rehab, new multi-sport pitch, new basketball courts, new playgrounds, new seating area. And when I see building refresh, for example, rehab, refresh gym, new heating, new windows, et cetera, et cetera. Miles Mack in District 3, very similar, building refresh, gut rehab, heating, cooling, playground, basketball courts, et cetera. Moss Playground, that was CD6. That was a minor building refresh, new playground, new area for adult fitness and cheerleading. Nelson Playground, District 7, that was a building addition and building rehab, in addition to brand new playground. Parkside practice fields was a grass practice fields in District 4 for football practice. Powers Park in District 1 was a refresh to the park there with the addition of a storage shed and new lighting. Cobb's Nature Play in District 3 just opened last week. Complete new playground along the Cobbs Creek Parkway. In construction, if that's helpful, Cobbs Creek Environmental Center, District 3, Fodderall, District 5. I can do the scope if you like. King Session Library, complete rehab renovation of a historic library. Pascoville Library, also that's District 2, also complete renovation of a historic library. Man Rivera Rec Center, Older Adult Center in District 7, complete building and site overhaul. Vare Rec Center in District 2, complete site and building overhaul. Vernon, in your district council member, has new backstop, new baseball fields, a Portland Loo, and I'm happy to speak more about that coming the end of the summer.
Well, let's, you know what, let's pause because we're mixing what's completed and what's still being proposed, because I don't have a Portland Loo in Vernon Park.
So they're actually under the ones I was just reading are under construction. But yes,
There's not even, unless you're telling me they're out there digging right now, then there's not even anything under construction right now in Vernon Park.
Vernon's actually complete with the exception of the loo. So the pad will be
right. Well, the loo was the primary purpose of construction or rebuild dollars. It was really all about the loo. And so it's still not done. The baseball field was a later addition and a smaller amount. The main thing that we were trying to accomplish was to have these facilities made available in the community. So can you go back for the 16 projects that are complete and give a breakdown of how many are in each district?
I can get that for you in a second. Got folks who can crunch the numbers. I will say for your district councilwoman, we do have Barrett Playground that should be starting in the fall. We have the Vernon baseball, as you mentioned, complete with the loo coming the rest of this at the end of the summer. We have Happy Hollow responding to certainly, we heard the community's expression of need there and your support to get that project started.
Let me just say this to you, Kara, because, you know, and we had this conversation last year again, and the lack of equity in the way decisions are made around these projects, because as I'm looking at it, and I think that the numbers are going to bear out, that when you made a decision in terms of where resources were going to go, the decisions were made based along the lines of who had the most need. And for some reason, the 8th district was seen as a district we didn't need anything. So all of a sudden they're responding to Happy Hollow, and as if, you know, the administration didn't know that Happy Hollow was the mess that it is. You know, there was this thinking that, from the former commissioner who came out and said that Jerome Brown was a palace. This is what she told the people from the community. And, you know, clearly that's not the case. And so when you look at where resources were allocated of the first 16 projects that were completed, it was not in the neighborhoods, in my opinion, based on the numbers that you gave and the neighborhoods that you gave, the districts that you gave, it was not keeping in line with where the majority of the money is being spent, because that's where the need was. We spent, it seems to me, a lot of money in neighborhoods that are already over-resourced with playground amenities. And so we just doubled down and put more money and moved them to the front of the line in some of these instances. So I'm wondering if you could give me a breakdown in that. While you're working on that, I'm going to move to Councilman, I think Kenyatta Johnson was next, and then Councilman Curtis Jones. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson. He may have dropped. Oh, is that him? Okay, Councilman Jones, we're going to move to you until the councilman is available and ready. Chair recognizes Councilman Curtis Jones. You're on mute, Councilman. Councilman, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you.
There you
Thank
go.
you so much. To give context to what Chairwoman Bass is talking about, is that we through the soda tax, aren't we receiving like $7.5 million a month? Is that true?
Councilman, I can't answer that question. I would need finance to weigh in on that.
So
Apologize.
those are the last numbers that I had, and it goes to a lot of worthwhile things, including pre-K and other things. We're going to have a hearing to talk about the expansion of pre-K. But when you mentioned all of these places, and the chairwoman wants to know where the major renovations are completed and not where the renovations are talked about. In my district, we received one of the first rebuild projects, and what it is a field with a fence. It's a field with a fence. And what I'm saying is that, yeah, we could not have predicted COVID. We could not have predicted some of the supply chain issues. But what the reality is, we're going to appropriations now to look at where we can fund the gap between what was proposed pre-COVID and the prices that were given to offset inflation, supply chain, and other problems that came up. And we're going to have to match some of the gaps that we receive, both from extra revenues from the state and extra revenues from us. So the sooner we build things, the sooner we stop getting inflationary increases for things. So, I appreciate, I don't never, envy my other colleagues who are getting completed, renovated, spray ground filled kinds of parks, because I will just take my grandkids down to their district to play, but I shouldn't have to. I should be able to enjoy that in the 8th district, in the 4th district, in the 5th district has a lot of, I'm going to start hanging out with President Clark a little more, but it should be, as the chairwoman talked about, in areas of the greatest need. All I have to do is look at where the shootings are happening, where the violence is happening, and then look at the conditions in that neighborhood of the playgrounds. And that should be the priority. And the Hollow, when I look at some of the newscasts, it goes down in that area. When I look at Shepherd in my area, and some of the newscasts, it goes down in that area. So the sooner we complete them, the sooner we can divert young people into a positive trajectory, because that's what this was all about. Shepherd in my district is where Wilt Chamberlain and others played, and countless other not Olympians and have made it through that rec center to colleges and universities and careers. So for the longer they're shut down, the more they are at risk. And so when the chairwoman is anxious, when the chairwoman is insistent and persistent about the completion of these projects, it's because our kids' lives depend on that. Everybody can't make it to Disney World. And so we depend on you and the completion of these projects to save lives. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Kira, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I thank you, Councilman Jones. I think I feel incredibly lucky and frankly honored to be surrounded by advocates all the time. You all, I think, take the lead there. I have a team that I think is incredibly dedicated to the mission of Rebuild and feels the urgency that you talk about. I think that a lot of the projects I read off are projects that were never intended to maybe have the entire site redone, but certainly the playground or other components, and they were quicker to get done, in part to the councilwoman's point because they were not the Shepherd Recreation Center, for example, with the entire site being done. And those certainly do take longer to lift up. And we certainly recognize, I think that when you are grappling with 50 years of disinvestment, and unfortunately operating departments that haven't been given the funds, like with Happy Hollow, to keep it up to the, I think, standard all of us would expect for our children, those projects don't happen overnight. And I think that the patience is really tough because we have a city that's tired and we've got a lot going on. So I feel the urgency that you convey. I respect it. I think this team feels it. We have a potential for over 15 groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings between now and the end of October. We want that pace to continue in all districts. So that I appreciate the feedback and we understand.
Thank you for your comments, Kira. I see Councilman Harity also has a question, but I do want to add that, Kira, I hear your statement that you're trying to, that you recognize the issues around equity in communities, but recognizing the problem and directly responding, I think, are two different things. And I don't know that people feel that the response has been acceptable from, comments and conversation that we had really a year ago. And so here we are a year later, and I feel like we're having the exact same conversation really over again about equity and how money is spent and in what neighborhoods. And we should have taken some notes and made some different decisions based on those same conversations from last year. So, but I'm going to hold on my questions and comments. Councilman Harity, Chair recognizes Councilman Harity.
Hello, Chairwoman. Kira, my question, I only heard one project being done in the 7th District. Can you tell me what neighborhood in the 7th District that is?
Sure. We have Rivera Rec Center and Man Older Adult Center that's currently under construction. Nelson Playground was completed. We have McVeigh Recreation Center slated to go to construction, we hope, before the end of this year. Piccoli Playground is under design. And I think that covers that, and Waterloo Playground. That was actually, we helped fund, but was managed by Parks and Rec. And I believe that is all wrapped up.
Okay, what about McPherson Library? I know that was on a list. Is there anything going to happen with that?
Yes, we currently have a site assessment happening there. We've been working with the council member because there's some leakage, we understand, with the roof. So we want to tackle that first, and then we'll be moving into a fuller scale project.
My understanding is there's also some foundation damage, which to me would seem like would be something that we would want to do first. Putting a roof on is all good, but if the building's not going to continue to stand,
Right.
that's a completely other thing. And, the importance of that library as an historical place is very, George Washington slept there. It was a stop on the Underground Railroad. There's a lot of history there. Just would be curious and would like to know when the foundation work would actually get started to be done.
Sure. The assessment actually is focusing in on that foundation. So our concern is it could be a roof issue, but we don't know yet. But absolutely, we've been made aware that there are foundation issues. So that's what the assessment will tell us. And we're happy to share that information when we have it. And we should have that soon.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, Councilman, and thank you, Kira. Another question for you, Kira. How much money have we spent so far in projects and rebuild?
We have spent nearly $100 million that's been spent.
What's the total rebuild budget?
We are looking at roughly between 430 million to 470 million, depending on the size of the future bond issuances. And that will mean also, frankly, keeping budgets in control.
So we've spent over 30% of our budget. And we don't have, this is not, it's just not moving the way people had expected. One of the projects we talked about the other day was Panatti Playground, which started in 2019 and is scheduled for ribbon cutting at this point in 2025. And so that's 6 years that we would be from start to finish, when the whole planning around rebuild would be, was that, or the whole appeal, I should say, to rebuild is that rebuild would be faster, much faster than the capital budget process, which right now is about 6 to 7 years, I think. Aparna, is that correct?
Apologies, Councilman. I have to get myself
That's
off
okay.
mute. It depends on the scale of the project and the funding mechanism.
Sure, but for a new building right now, what's the city running to build a new building from start to finish?
It would be 3 to 5 years, depending on if we had all the money in 1 year. Our biggest challenge is we never get enough money in one calendar year to start the project.
So so if you have all the money you need, the capital projects process is faster than the rebuild process?
I don't know, because you'd have to compare it project to project. So I don't know that I could answer that exactly.
Okay, because I think that that's something really worth looking at, because again, the whole process or the whole appeal to doing rebuild versus capital, why we even got online with all of this, was because we thought we could do things a whole lot faster. We could bypass some of the rules and regulations around capital and just move things forward so that rebuild would actually be like a 2 or 3 year start to finish program. I'm going to pause for a second. I see Councilwoman Gauthier has a question. I'm not sure, Councilman Harity, if you also have a question. I see your hand is up. I don't know if that was old. Okay, Councilwoman Gauthier, Chair recognizes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
I wanted to acknowledge and empathize with your experience and with the frustration, while also just offering my own appreciation for the rebuild team. I think in the 3rd District too, we've seen some of the smaller projects completed, like Miles Mack, and we just unveiled a really beautiful nature playground in Cobbs Creek last week. And like some of the other districts, our broader or bigger, more ambitious projects, King Sussing, Cobbs Creek, are just now, entering the design and construction phase. But I just also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that this was always a very ambitious initiative. No one expected what happens with COVID to happen. But I have a full confidence that the rebuild team will work with council to make sure that these projects get done and get done as soon as possible, particularly with the administration, ending. So I wanted to, say that we've seen some frustrating moments, but I also think this has been a really hard initiative in general, and that we hit snags that no one thought that we were going to hit. And I do think it has to be examined that some of these sites, are facing like years and years of disinvestment, which has pushed, made the projects harder overall. And so, thanks to the council members for putting, these issues on the table, but also thanks to the rebuild team for the very hard work that they've undertaken. Thank you.
So thank you, Council Lady, for coming to the rescue of the rebuild team. Thank you for saying, giving them their props. Listen, this is city government and we all work hard. That's the gig. That's what you sign up for when we all come through the door. And no easy jobs here. And so that's what it should say on the front door. No easy jobs here. We all sign up to do very challenging work and to serve. And so while we thank them for the work that they have done, we also want to recognize that in a lot of neighborhoods, the fruits of those labors have not been seen. And in other neighborhoods, the fruits of those labors are overly abundant. And so the question isn't, are they working? I believe that Kira and her team do work hard every day. The question is, how are we making sure that everyone has access to those resources and all of the wonderful things that are happening throughout the city? There's no question that if you look at let's say the center city and the commercial corridor down here and the work that's being done, and it's summertime and we have so many wonderful things happening in center city, but if we take that right into certain neighborhoods and look at what is happening in those neighborhoods, you will find that there is a disconnect in many of those communities, and that's what we're trying to bridge that gap for. So thank you for your comments. Councilman Jones, did you have a comment or question? I saw you came up. No?
No, Madam Chair, thank you. I just want to echo your sentiments that when we go to community meetings and we explain all of the circumstances and pandemics and supply chain issues, at the end of the day, they point at us.
Yeah.
And say, make it happen. And so
Right.
anything that we say on these hearings is with the spirit of that in mind. And
Right.
it's not personal, it's professional,
Exactly.
and it's our passion to represent our people.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Councilman. When we go into the community, who gets the blame? The person that they elected. It doesn't go to anyone else. It's the person that they feel like they have put into office to represent them and their interests. And so, they don't care about a pandemic. They don't care about a supply chain issue. They don't care about, budgets. What they know is when we submitted our list of projects and what we wanted to see happen, other things are happening in other communities. And listen, if you can get it, good for you. But if you can't get it, it's a problem. And for most of the neighborhoods in our communities, we can't get it. So Kira, do you have a list of those 16 projects that were completed and what neighborhoods or what council districts they were completed in?
I do. And just checking, am I on camera? I haven't touched
Yes,
it,
you
but
are.
it seems to
Yes,
go on
you
and
are.
off.
Yes,
Okay.
we see you.
In District 1, 3 are completed. In District 2, 1. In District 3, 1. In District 4, 2. In District 5, 3. In District 6, 3. In District 7, 1. In District 8, 1 with Vernon, but we understand the Lou, so we can call that complete when the Lou arrives this summer. District 9, 0. And District 10, 2.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just want to point out one thing in particular, that some of our districts here, I think the districts with the highest numbers were also the districts that received the lowest rebuild allocations, among the lowest rebuild allocations, because they were districts that had been not over-resourced, but better resourced over years. I will say that. So thus far, we've spent $100 million of the city's of the rebuild budget. About 30% of said budget, which is between 430 and $470 million. And so I'm wondering, so how much have we borrowed? How much, not just spent, but how much do we have, tucked away that we borrowed but haven't spent down yet? Do we have any money? Or are you counting that in the 100 million?
That's just true spend. So it would reflect dollars that we have. We currently, in addition to the William Penn funds, some grant funds, we are nearing the end of the first bond issuance.
Okay. So now we're at the point of the second bond issuance.
Getting close, yes. We do have, which would add to our budget, which is helpful for some of the overages we're seeing at sites. Like Panatti's budget, for example, you're referencing that has grown. Shepherd's budget has grown. We have a number of projects whose budgets have some gaps. So there is $40 million allocation in the current budget that will help bridge some of those gaps, which we're very thankful for, because that has also frankly caused delays. And I did want to, council member, just say 6 years is not an average for our sites. I think, and the goal is to get to, I think, 2 to 2.5, but most of our projects, I would say, are much faster than 6. But as you're familiar, Panatti, we started working with a nonprofit and we had a rehab as the scope, and we went down that path. And with your support and frankly, I think vision, we were able to pivot to a new building and a new construction building. And we started again with the design. Frankly, I think we'd absolutely like it all to be faster, but that's I think a great example of some of what we encounter when we get to sites, that frankly, the original vision of what rebuild might be has really grown. I think not only the expectations of community members, but also community advocates, council people, and just where we are currently in today's society. We recognize the need for these public spaces, and I don't think the boiler fix in the roof, her community members are holding us, you especially, to task. It's not cutting it. So the scopes have grown.
Oh, yeah.
So, we understand that, and some of the pivot and some of the time is around accommodating that too. I think we're going to end up with much, much better projects that'll hopefully stand the test of time. But some of those pivots do certainly take time, and to raise the funds. So thank you all to your support too on that. It's absolutely critical to bring in those additional funds.
Quick question, Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Johnson.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Johnson. Chair recognizes Councilman
Yeah,
Johnson.
Hey, thank you very much. I just had a quick question, Chair. What's the strategy and plan a transition putting together? But just want to get an idea, especially for district council members, how can we be most prepared for this transition so that our projects will continuously moving forward? I know the new administration will have a say-so over this, but at the end of the day, members of council want to make sure that we are able to move forward and finishing and completing that which was promised to all of our councilmatic districts.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilman Johnson. We certainly agree to have all these bigger scale projects, like Barrett, like Bear, Shepherd, Edgeley Field, that are in design and where we've engaged community members, where we've gotten people really excited, and they have, to your point, been waiting and are impatient. To not see those go into construction in this year and land, I think would really be beyond a travesty for the residents of Philadelphia. Our commitment is to keep those projects moving forward so that they do cut the ribbon and get back into service in a way that lends integrity to the city and the people we serve. I think your continued support across council for the program and to keep things moving is great. I think that obviously the dollars that we do have, we want to make sure that they are being spent on the construction. Like I mentioned, it's about $250 million worth of construction over the next year, and we want to see those projects happen. So I think we feel that urgency and push to get those projects absolutely in construction. And I think your continued support with our new administration around the importance and the need for these sites will be very, very, very helpful.
Well, listen, thank you. I appreciate it. And, for me, if you can just keep us abreast and maybe we get a briefing, with you and the mayor's team regarding what this transition is going to look like, that would be very, very helpful, just so we can all be on the same page as to what to expect. I mean, obviously, until the new administration come in, we don't really know what to expect, but at least we will all be on the same page as members of council as to at least what our expectations are, what the transition period looks like, and then we'll just present our case to the next administration.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that would be terrific. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any additional questions from members of council? Any additional questions? All right, okay, one moment. That's going to end our public hearing and we're going to go into the public meeting. Please pause. Okay, thank you very much. And that concludes the hearing of the Committee on Parks and Recreation. We're going to give a second if those who are guests on this hearing are called to testify. If they could exit the hearing at this point. And actually, before they exit, I do want to pause for 1 second and make sure. Is there anyone who appeared or wanted to testify at this hearing that we did not call your name? I do want to make sure that there's no one out there who was interested in offering testimony or comments that was not recognized. I don't think that there was, but if you are, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we're going to ask all of our guests to leave the hearing at this time as we go into our public meeting. If we could have our, okay, all right. And at this time, I'm going to ask, as we move into the public meeting, I'm going to ask the clerk to please take the roll. Members that are in attendance, please state your name or say present when your name is called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image is displayed on screen so that we can check the attendance and make sure we still have a quorum. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gautier,
Present.
Councilmember Brooks, is Councilmember Brooks here? Councilmember Johnson, Councilmember Jones, Councilmember Harity,
I am here, present and accounted for.
Councilmember Thomas, and the Councilwoman, the Chair Bass.
Thank you. I think that we're short of a quorum by 2 members. So I'm going to pause while we round up 2 members so that we can take a vote on the matters at hand. 1 moment.
I'm here, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. And I know we're waiting for one more. We're waiting for, I think, Councilman Jones. 1, 2, 3.
Councilmember Brooks is present.
Okay, all right, so we have Councilmember Brooks, so all right, so we can proceed. So just going back, we already confirmed Councilwoman Gauthier, Councilman Brooks is on, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Harity, and Chair Bass, so we do have a quorum. That being said, Chair recognizes Councilmember Gauthier for a motion on bill number 221016. Councilwoman, do you have the script? Gauthier?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 221016 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Johnson seconds the motion. It's been moved and properly seconded that bill number 221016 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. And next, the chair recognizes Councilmember Gauthier for a motion on bill number 230324.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 230324 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
Can we get a second?
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Brooks seconds the motion. It's been moved and properly seconded that bill number 230324 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. And the chair recognizes Councilmember Gauthier for a motion on resolution number 230461.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that resolution number 230461 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at our next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Harity seconds the motion, and it's been moved and properly seconded that resolution number 230461 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor of this motion will signify, let me just go back.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman, let me just go back over my language. It's been moved and properly seconded that resolution number 230461 be reported from this committee with a rule suspension and a favorable recommendation. All of those in favor of this motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. And this concludes the business before the Committee on Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. And I thank you all very much for your attendance today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
Madam
good
Chair.
one.
Take care.